But anyway, hello everybody. I'm glad to be here today. Let's talk about Jakarta EE with NoSQL database plus in the cloud age. So the total goal today is talk about how I, as Java developer, can use Jakarta EE with NoSQL database in the cloud age because in this moment everything goes to the cloud, right? So my name is Otavio Santana. My Twitter handle is at Otavio Java. Please follow me because I usually write and do several presentations about mostly about Jakarta EE, microprofile, Java in general, and mostly about cloud. Okay, a little bit about me. So again, DevGel engineer from Platform.sh. Platform.sh is a cloud company who has a goal to make easier to you move your application to the cloud. That's a wonderful way. We are gonna talk about that later, but basically you need just two files to take your application and move to the cloud. And you don't need to worry about database. You don't need to worry about hosts. Basically, you just need to worry about your code and these configuration files where you define what you want in your application, such as SQL database, NoSQL database, and so on. Uh, I'm Java champion, executive member for JCP, Apache committer, Eclipse committer, Eclipse project leader. And on my free time, I also write several books and articles about Java and technology. Yes, I need to have more time with people. But anyway, once I introduce me, let's talk about Jakarta NoSQL and how can I make that possible to integrate both Jakarta E and NoSQL database? Right now, we are working in a Jakarta NoSQL specification. If you want to know more, go to Jakarta E slash specification and find by NoSQL. To make that possible, I'm gonna show to you a code where I'm running in a Maven project, as you can see on my .xml file. This file has several dependencies. My CDI weld, my JSON bind, that version, my Jakarta microprofile configuration that I'm gonna show soon, and finally my Jakarta NoSQL specification. Right now, I'm showing the dependence of the reference implementation of Jakarta NoSQL. Jakarta NoSQL has two layers. One layer is your mapper. You can think as JPA to NoSQL database, where we have two APIs. One API to document, one API to column, one API to key value, one API to graph, right? And we have the communication layer. If you want to do analogy between SQL and NoSQL, you can think about JDBC, however, to NoSQL database, right? Again, my mapper layer, JPA, my communication layer, you can think about JDBC, however, to NoSQL database. I have my dependency document, my key value, my column, and my communication where I'm gonna use MongoDB and Redis, right? So to make that easy impossible, I'm gonna run a service as Docker Compose where I have two services. The first one is with Redis. The name is key value. The second one, the name is document, and it is a MongoDB latest version, right? So let's start. The first thing that I want to do is my entity. I'm gonna create a god entity because I love Greece mythology. And usually I put three attributes. The first one is long, where it's gonna be my ID. The second one is my name. And the last and most important one for sure is my power, right? So my powers. Basically, that's exactly something that you can do with JPA and NoSQL database, right? I created the class where this class is going to be my entity, and I create my fields. The next step is to map this entity class to a NoSQL database. And that's pretty similar to JPA. So I want to define this class as an entity. So let's use the entity annotation. Done. I want to define this field as an ID. So let's use the ID annotation. Done. I want to make the another fields processable. So let's use the column annotation. Done, done, done. As you can see, I just use Jakarta NoSQL package and mapping because it's a mapping layer. And I'm using three annotation, one to entity, to ID, and to column. And that is it. Why I don't use JPA notation instead? Basically because JPA was created to SQL database, and Jakarta NoSQL is created to NoSQL database. Therefore, on JPA you have more options like one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many. However, in NoSQL database we don't have this kind of option, right? So that's why. Furthermore, NoSQL database usually does not have transaction, and there are several particular behavior that we have on NoSQL, but you don't have in SQL, and so on, inverse version, right? So let's create a constructor with the three attributes, three fields, another one with empty. My God, to finish, what do I need to use is basically a toString just to show the result. And that is it. And as you can see, basically what I did, I create an entity got, and let's move on. So because in CDI 2.0, I'm able to use Java SE, I'm gonna create a simple and plain Java SE application, right? So let's start with public start void main, and then it starts the CDI container. How? SE container equals SE container initializer, new instance initialize. Because it uses an API higher than 7, on this case 8, we have several features that not use. For example, the try with resource. Right now, what I'm doing, I'm gonna create this container. And when this try is finished, it's gonna close the whole resource in that container. For example, in this case, the whole connection that I'm gonna have, right? So let's create first my god. I'm gonna use Diana, new Diana. The first one is the ID, the second one is the name, and the last one is my power. And Diana is the goodness of hunt and moon. As you can see, I'm using Java 11, right? That's why I can use set of, and then it's gonna create a set for me. Right now, I have my CDI container and I have my entity. The next step is to start that information on my NoSQL database. Let's start with the easy one. Let's start with key value with Redis. To make that easier, we on mapping layer we have two ways. The first one is with templates. The templates is like a low layer to you map your class. I'm gonna show to you. In this template, I have one to each API. The key value template, the column template, the document template, and the graph template. To work with key value, for sure, I'm gonna use my key value template. I'm gonna inject that with the CDI, so container, select key value template, and then I'm gonna first put that information on my database, right? And then I'm gonna return that information. Remember that key value looks like a map in the Java world. Therefore, I can return and insert information only by ID. So when I do a get, it requires me the ID and the way that I'm gonna serialize that. On this case, using the got entity. Because it use Java 8, I'm able to use optional. That's mean instead of handle new reference, you can use optional to check that if that's possible. Salt, the got result by 1 is this guy here. Okay, let's concat. So I can do everything with the ID. I can delete as well. So let's delete and let's search again, right? Just to make sure that everything's okay. To avoid to waste time, I put a docker down and just to prove that I don't have anything in my sleeve, and I'm gonna run this application. And I got an exception about the connection, all right? Connection refused because I don't have any kind of connection here. The configuration go through micro profile configuration. Why? Why are you using that? Basically, because if you remember, there is a 12-factor application. The third commandment is about don't put a credential directly in your code. Don't do that. Instead, use configuration by environment. Basically, this property here is to my local host, and on production, I can override the whole information. And I, as a developer, don't even need to know about that configuration on production. Configuration such as a database, such as a user, and so on. So uh, that is it. So let's start my Docker application, Docker up. It's gonna start the, as you can see, it starts the key value and then the document. And let's run again, right? Okay, let's run again. Hopefully it's gonna work. And as you can see, they got result by 1. I return the result. And then I delete the information. When I try to recover again, it's empty. Uh, if you remember what I mentioned about, okay, why not use JPA in the same API of NoSQL database, is basically because NoSQL has particular behavior that worth to have a specific API. For example, the TTL. What does mean TTL? TTL is time to live. Basically, we define the time to the information still in the database and then expire it. One thing that I don't like that I saw in several APIs is to define the TTL. For example, I want to expire that information in 12. The first question is 12 what? 12 hours, 12 seconds. And I usually need to go to any kind of Java doc to check what's that what does integer mean to me on this case. Instead of put as a number, the API use duration, where you can define the time, so of seconds. Right now, it's clear to me that I'm gonna put the information and it's gonna still there for 1 second and then gonna disappear, right? So I'm gonna search and then I'm gonna remove this guy here. Instead, I'm gonna put time unit, seconds, sleep, 2 seconds, and then I'm gonna return again. Now let's use the throw here. Okay, let's run the application, and probably what you can see, put the got, wait 2 seconds, and then find again, and yeah, it's gonna be empty. Okay, if you put more time than the time, it's gonna return twice, right? So there is no secret here. Therefore, I put in 10 seconds, wait for 2 seconds, that is still left 8 seconds. And if I do the search right now, I don't find anything. Okay, so basically that's it. The the point of the key value API. I have some ways to return information as well. So for example here, if I want to search by a string, you can do that. As for example, I want to do a query by string where I do a get one. Why not select uh, select star from something like that? Basically because in the key value, we just have one way to return and find information, basically by the key. Thank you, Bravo. 15 minutes left. I got it. And basically what I'm gonna do is do the search by text. So let's return here, text. Okay, let's move here. Let's run again. And as you can see, I have my optional by information. Okay, Otavio, but if I want my prepared statement, yes, you can do that. So get at an ID and instead of return here, and then I'm gonna return my prepare statement, prepare, bind, and then I can replace here. So and in my prepare, I'm gonna put a single result. And let's run again. Okay, so as you can see, I did a prepare statement to do a key value query. Why not use the exact the same? Because the structure is totally different. Let's move on to the next NoSQL type. So also just have 15 minutes left. Let's go to the second example, this time using document. So let's create document app. And let's do the most amazing technique that you do and you can do a lot. That is copy paste. Why not? I copy paste here, and this time I'd like to use a document. And to make that possible, yes, you're gonna use the document template. Template, document template, right? As you can see, instead of put, I have different methods like insert. The question is why insert? Why not just put? Basically because yes, okay. I'm gonna search once, my Diana, everything gonna be all right. And when I decide to insert twice, guess what? It's gonna return an exception because on MongoDB, I'm not able to insert twice with the same key. We have the consistency level behavior that matter sometimes. Usually in key value and also in Cassandra, if you use the same command, that means the same thing, the exactly same thing. So insert and update is something. But in document, usually, for example, like MongoDB, it does matter. So instead of insert, you need to use update. Yes, we have something pretty similar, like a poster that can abstract that to you, but that's the behavior. If you want, you have the option to find by ID, God, the ID. That's a little bit similar to, let's put God. Oops, now you here. Oops, now here. God, find my ID, and then the result. And let's do the God here. Let's execute. Execute again. And as you can see, I have my result. One, Diana, the powers. And yes, remember, and the key value, I just have one way to return information that is from the key. On the documents side, I have something pretty similar to SQL. Therefore, we have the option to find by name. Let me show to you. For example, one important thing about NoSQL is it uses a lot of Fluent API. That means I don't need to go to the documentation a couple of times. For example, here, document query. Imagine right now that's my first time that I'd like to create a query on document. So document, when I click in the font, I have the option. So select where I can choose the set the document or by star for everything. And I have no idea the next, so it's gonna show to me. So in this case, by God. Okay, I have no idea about my next option, so don't worry. You have the build option, but on this case, you want to do the where, right? So where, name, where the option here, between equals greater than equals in like lesser, less than 8, equals and not. So in this case, let's use equals. So I want to find out, I got where the name is equals to Diana. And let's build. Right now we have the query. Let's execute. Select query. On this case, okay, let's for it system.out.print at len. Let's put any kind of log here. So the result is blah 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 blah. And let's execute again. As you can see, I did the search by ID. Let's remove here this guy. I don't need that anymore. And by query. Also, you have more option when you do the query by text. You have this option as well. And this one is a little bit similar to SQL, with the exception that you don't have the joins by default. For example, here, let's do the template, select. So select start from God where name equals Diana. Probably I'm forget something. Query, that is it. For it, this guy here. So basically, let's copy paste and put the result in text is. Right now we have the two options. Yes, if you want to, you have the option to use the prepare statement here. That means instead of Diana directly, you can use something like at name and then do the prepare. One important point. Uh, the query by Fluent API is safer than by text because if you forget any kind of thing, it's just going to return to you the error in the runtime. Like I forget to put the equals here. It's going to execute to me and then return my grammar exception. So I forget something in the name here. It's going to explain to me what is missing. So I have an issue in the line 29, right? Because I forget the equals here. It's won't happen or compile because if you forget something, it's basically one compile, right? So that is it. So basically what we did right now, you have an application. We was able to, with the same God entity, go to both a key value with Redis and a MongoDB, a document with MongoDB, right? So let's move on to the next stage where you're gonna try to move that application to the cloud. Not exactly this one, but one cloud application. So if you want to know more, there is the application here, link application, where I'm gonna show to you. But first, click the button deploy, where I can deploy in one of several cloud native solutions. So I click the button deploy on Platform.sh. Okay, while it's loading, cloud native. If you go to landscape of cloud native foundation, you you'll be able to see several options. Okay, it's loading. Let's start with the name. So hello, Eclipse Foundation. Let's take the region. So in this case, Europe 3, and let's create a product. So it's creating. Why that? Let's show to you one thing. That's the cloud native landscape where we have several options, several solutions. Therefore, cloud native is much more than Docking Kubernetes. Indeed, you have several options that include us, Platform.sh, right? That's why I'm here. And let's go in the application itself. So let's open this application. Don't worry, I'm gonna share to you. So basically, what I'm doing here, I have my entity, that's my AppSot, where I'm using Jakarta NoSQL with microprofile. If you don't know, microprofile has several Jakarta EE specifications, such as CDI and JSON bind and JAX-RS. So basically, I have my entity, I have my resource here, where it's basically my path, annotation, something like that. I have my properties, where I'm gonna write that. And how can I put that application on the cloud? On Platform.sh, we have 3 files. The first one is my application file, where I define my, yeah, if there's some question, please let me know. I have my configuration to my application, where I set the Java 11 and how I build and how I run. And as you can see, I'm gonna override the credential. So on production, I even have no idea. In the service, I have the MongoDB service in the space, and I don't even need to handle that. And that's my application build. As you can see, I don't need to put something extra. I just push my remote code, and it's gonna build. And as you can see, it's gonna build my Maven application, then execute my Maven application. Um, that is everything for me. So basically, I introduce a little bit of Jakarta E with NoSQL database, and introduce you one easy way to take your application with Java and move on to the cloud with Platform.sh. If you want to know more about us, so that is the QR code. So click here, where you go to a landing page where there is several information about Jakarta NoSQL, Platform.sh, and MongoDB and NoSQL database in general. So that is it. So let's check if there's any question. Let's click here in the QA, but I don't think so. If you have any question, please let me know. We still have 1 minute left. But if you don't, thank you to be here. I'm really appreciate it. And yes, that is, if you go to the QR code here, so use your cell phone and go here, you're gonna have the whole landing page with several resources. Thank you, thank you. That's all. Let's stop share my screen.